Okay, we're there.
We full screen, Pam?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Hey guys.
Okay. All right. We're full screen, and I'm hoping that your audio is turned up because well, this is birding by ear, so you do need to listen fairly well. I've got some audio clips in here that we're going to use to test to see how well you're taking in some of the information and so on, and hopefully have a lot of fun by while we're doing it. So,
But hers is not set up for the meeting.
thank you very much, Pam, for helping to organize this great event, and thank you everybody for allowing me to speak about birding, topic near and dear to me. I'm a pot. I really, most of my job deals with plants, but you can't help but notice the birds when you're walking through the forest. So, my name's Kelley Honeyman. I'm a naturalist with Irving Woodlands, and welcome to Birding by Ear. So, let's see if we can get through here. And I'm wondering why I'm not advancing. Oh, there we go. This is probably how most people enter the birding craze, or they.
Hey guys, I don't know what's so funny.
The birding is, well, some people describe it as a sport. I'm not going to go as far as that, but I will tell you that it's pastime for sure. And people generally just pick it up initially by staring out their window into the backyards, or looking at a feeder, or going through a local park. And typically, you know, as you get a little bit better at it, you might bring along binoculars and maybe some of these field guides. These are three of the most popular field guides for this part of North America. And that's how people typically get into bird watching. And obviously it's watching. And unfortunately, for every bird that you see in the woods, chances are there's probably another half dozen to a dozen other birds that are in those same woods, but you're not able to see them. They're either well camouflaged, or for whatever reason, you might be able to hear them, but by seeing them, because of the closeness of the canopy, how tight the forest is, and how many branches and leaves are in the way, it makes it difficult to see. So there are other ways to identify birds other than just watching them. But starting out to do bird watching, to identify birds initially, it's a good idea to get a few little pointers down. And what I typically do is I've got one of the field guides on the previous page. I've got the Peterson guide, and I've got a big sticky note just on the inside of that. And I usually end up drawing really, really crude looking birds. When I see a bird that I don't recognize right away, typically what I will do is I'll do a very crude drawing, similar to the one on the left of your screen, or on your right, sorry. And I'll write down some quick notes on what it looks like. What does the beak look like? Is it a fairly strong, robust looking beak that would be used for cracking open things like cherry seeds or sunflower seeds? Or is its beak a little bit long and thin, used for poking out its prey from its food from mud flats, little things called mud shrimps? Maybe it's a type of shorebird. So noting the beak shape, noting colors and patterns in the feathers is important too. You know, is there a stripe on the head? Is there white bars or something on the wings? Things like that. Just make quick notes where you saw the bird. It's probably something you'll remember, I'm sure. You know, is it a hardwood stand? Is it a softwood stand? Mixed wood? You know, things along that line. It's important to mark that down too, because birds, just like us, they have preferences in where they like to live, and where they like to nest, where they like to gather their food, and so on. So by writing down the habitat, that would help you to narrow down what that bird is that you're trying to identify. Habits is a good thing to write down as well. Sometimes you'll see a flock of birds and they'll just flit from treetop to treetop. They don't come down into the stand. They aren't on the forest floor. They stay up in the upper part of the canopy, of the tree canopy. Or perhaps it's a bird that you see only or mostly walking on the ground. Some birds do a lot of walking on the forest floor. We'll talk about one of those a little bit further along here. Maybe it's a bird that bobs its head or flicks its tail up and down. So some birds do that kind of stuff. So make note of those particular habits that you're seeing, because that will help you to identify as well. And also, what about the call or the song? What is the sound that the bird is making? You can jot down some notes on that as well. So that will help you to identify it, because a quick drawing with those little notes on there will last a long time. Whereas that bird, you'll get maybe 5-10 seconds of watching through the binoculars before it takes off again. So good quick sketches is all you need to help you with ID. Now, sometimes you're not able to do. Sometimes you're not able to see all the birds around you. I mentioned that before. For every one bird you may see, there's probably another half dozen or more that are hanging around the background. But you can hear them. And this is an image of myself and Richard Black here, who's in the gray shirt there. We're doing some bird monitoring in and around Fundy National Park. And our company's done bird monitoring in northern New Brunswick and northern Maine and down in southern New Brunswick. And we've done it with birders. And Richard's out and I'm out as well. But we're only two people, and we can't be at any more than one place at a time. So we've kind of used technology to help us to identify more birds in more different forest types. Believe it or not, this day and age, there are still some things we don't know about some birds. You know, where do they like to live? Where do they forage for their food, and so on. And so there's still some questions out there, and that's what Richard and I were trying to do in this particular spot. We put up it's called a song meter, and that basically it's just a recorder, a sound recorder, and it plays for particular times. This one was set up to play for a number of minutes before dawn, just after dawn, and then before dusk and just after dusk to capture the height of the bird song activity in the forest. And through those bird song recorders, we've gathered, I think there's over 600 hours of bird songs from these recordings. And so with these recordings, we send them off to actually Canadian Forest Service up in Sault Ste. Marie, to a researcher up there, and she loads them into a computer, and with the bird songs with the computer, it can pull out the bird identification, so what the birds are, just by listening to the bird songs. And it does this through a program called Kaleidoscope. Now, there are some problems that the software has, and I'll give you a sort of a relatable example here in just a second. You can imagine that a black-capped chickadee, well, I tell you that a black-capped chickadee that you hear in the interior of British Columbia doesn't have exactly the same call or song as a black-capped chickadee in the Maritime provinces. There are dialects, just like you know, we have dialects. Us humans have dialects. Birds do too, and regional dialects as well. I think everybody probably in the class can probably tell if somebody comes from, let's say, Newfoundland, or one of the outports in Newfoundland, or Cape Breton, or even the Miramichi. There's a certain dialect from those areas that you can distinguish from other parts, from people that live in other parts of New Brunswick, if they've been there for a long enough time anyway. So there are regional differences in birds. Those 600 and some hours that we're going to send up and feed into this Kaleidoscope software will actually help the software to learn the regional dialects so that it will be better the next time at recognizing the New Brunswick birds. So, songs and calls. So we've been talking about songs and calls, but we really haven't defined it yet, have we? So song is just a group or a cluster of specialized a series of notes that are strung together to make a song. Simple as that. And those songs are used to typically for courtship behaviors, to attract a mate, or to establish or maintain a territory. Okay, so it's a longer drawn out series of vocalizations, and typically somewhat musical. Whereas a call, a little bit different. Call it can be just one or two notes strung together, and they're used for alarm calls essentially, or maintaining a flock. What I mean by alarm call is obviously it's for predator call. If you want to make sure that your peeps, pardon the pun, know that there's a predator in the area, then you would give out a particular alarm call rather than a song. Okay, and then maintaining a flock, the call for maintaining the flock. Well, birds typically when they're foraging in the woods, especially some songbirds and so on, when they're going through and flying through the woods and landing on trees and gathering up insects as a group, sometimes they get spread apart, as you can imagine. It's just like a class would. If you guys went out for a field walk out in the woods, some of you will stray away and so on. Probably the teacher will have a whistle with her. I'm sure he or she will have a good voice, and she will call you in and make sure that you're staying in together as a class. Well, birds do the same sort of thing. They maintain their flock by certain calls. Okay, so calls are about notifying other birds about predators and maintaining the flock. So let's bring up some examples here. Let's see if I can find my mouse. And I'm sure you'll recognize the songs and the calls here. Now, what I want you to do is you just tell your teacher whether you think this is a call or a song. I'm going to play the first one here. How did the audio come through? Good?
Yes.
Hoping? Okay, perfect. So is that a call or a song? Is it a whole bunch of notes all strung together, or is it just a series of two notes? It's a call, exactly, perfect. Now, what kind of call is, what's the bird that it's coming from?
Goose.
Ooh, Canada goose, all right. See, I knew you'd know. There we are. And there they are right there. And that's a typical sound you'll hear as they're flying overhead. They want to maintain their formation, that V formation, and make sure that the little stragglers aren't getting left behind. So that's a gathering call. Okay, so that's an easy one. There we go. So we'll try another one. I'm going to move a little thingy here, the other side of the screen. Try this one. This one's harder. Is that a call or a song?
Song.
Is there a bunch of notes strung together or just a few notes?
Just a few. So then is it a
Few?
It's a song.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll see the bird, and we're going to have the opposite to it here in a second. Oops. There we go. There he is. Okay. So that is a black-capped chickadee. And coincidentally, that is also New Brunswick's provincial bird. Yes. Okay. There you go. So New Brunswick's provincial bird is a black-capped chickadee. We also have another type of chickadee, boreal chickadee. Looks almost exactly the same. Not quite as abundant. boreal chickadees are relatively rare compared to blackcaps. Boreal chickadees, you have to go way in the deep woods to see them. Main difference between a boreal and a blackcap is a boreal would have a brown, sort of a chestnut colored head, whereas the black has got the blackcap. So simple. All right, let's try the third one here. And again, I've got to move a bunch of people's faces around. So what do you think? Is that a call or a song? That's a call. Okay, so you've got it by now. You recognize the difference between a call and a song for sure. So, and that is the call of this one right here. And that is, what do you think that is? What, if you look at that bird, and if you use the visual description of it, what would you call that thing?
Yellowhead.
A yellowhead? Well, yeah, no, it's a good guess. What about his throat? What color is the throat?
White.
White. Okay. So that's actually a white-throated sparrow. Fairly common bird in the forest of New Brunswick. So, yeah. Okay. So we've got all calls here, gathering calls here for all three of these birds, used to sort of keep the flock together. Let's go on to the next one here. Now let's try these ones. What about that one? There was two in there and the one in the end, but don't worry about the one on the end. But what do you think that sound was?
I think it's a song.
It's a song, yeah. Okay, it's a song. And what do you think the bird is? Anybody ever heard that before?
I believe you.
Yeah. I bet you have. Let's try and see what it is. Let's try this again. Yeah, technology. There we go. There he is. So that's the song of the black-capped chickadee. All right. And I'm sure you've all heard this before. And there is the mnemonic for it. And what I mean by mnemonic is it's actually a word from the ancient Greek, and it means to memorize. So it's just a way to keep a memory in your brain. So the mnemonic for a black-capped chickadee song is cheeseburger, cheeseburger. Did you hear that when you were listening? The cheeseburger sound? Let's try it again. So it's not saying Big Mac, not saying Whopper, it's saying cheeseburger, right? Okay. So that is a song. And that is song, and songs are used for what?
Mating.
For mating, yeah, exactly, for courtship. Okay, so, and also to establish or maintain a territory as well. So even after he's got his mate and he's settling down with his family, he wants to make sure that all the other chickadees are staying out of the area because he wants to maintain his spot for feeding, right? So he'll also use that same sound for basically telling people that this is my property, stay off. Okay, so let's listen to the next one. You can tell me whether this is a call or a song. Oh. Call or a song?
Song.
That's a song. Now, just to show of hands, because I'm stretch my little hand. Show of hands. How many people have heard that one before? Have they ever heard that one before? The mnemonic for that one, or the sort of the memory clue that you can use for that is, oh, sweet Canada, Canada, Canada.
What?
You get that? Do you get that sound? Try it again. You hear the oh sweet Canada, Canada, Canada? Now if you're American, you would say, oh. If you're an American, you would be saying old Sam Peabody, Peabody, Peabody. But we're a little bit more patriotic than they are. So we're going to call it "Oh Sweet Canada, Canada, Canada." So that was the white-throated sparrow song. All right. Now calls. I mentioned calls are used to warn other birds of predators. Okay. Sort of an alarm call, or it's also used for the what was the other thing that it was used for? Alarm sound and maintaining the flock, right? So chickadees, believe it or not, black-capped chickadees, here's a little one here taken off, they actually are fairly descriptive when they give off an alarm call. Not only do they tell them that there's something around, not only do they tell the other birds that there's something around, but it'll also tell the other birds how much threat that is. So chickadees actually rank their threats and use different vocalizations to let you know how big of a threat that the chickadee thinks this predator is. So for a bird that is flying over top, so a chickadee sitting on a branch and a bird flies over top, and it's a hawk. Well, the chickadee alarm call for that would be just a simple tss. That's all it is. Just a single tss, because that is a big threat to them, because A, the bird's in flight, so it can easily change directions and swoop down and take out the chickadee. So it's a very quick, simple, and he's basically telling his peeps that there's a big old hawk going over top. Now, if the predator was resting on a branch, or if the predator was on the ground, then it's less of a threat. And they use another type of call called the chickadee call, where they get the name from chickadee. So the number of D's that the bird vocalizes actually tells you how big of a threat it is. And you can see here the number of D notes per call. So if a chickadee saw a saw-whet owl, which saw-whet owls don't typically eat birds, but if a chickadee saw a saw-whet owl, it would say chickadee, D, 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 and it would offer up 4 little D's to that predator call. Whereas if they saw something like a rough-legged hawk or a red-tailed hawk, it would be simply a chickadee or a chickadee-dee. So the number of D sounds, it equates to a higher predator threat, I guess is the way of saying that. All right. So they're pretty smart that way. It's pretty cool. So let's listen to that chickadee call. Try to count the number of D's. Did we get the number of D's in the call? I counted anywhere from 3 to 4 D's per call. So it's somewhere up there in terms of a predator threat. Now, I don't know where humans lie as a predator threat. But I'm thinking that that chickadee was probably noticing the guy with the big parabolic dish trying to capture those sounds. And he probably thought, okay, there's the predator. Now, is that guy going to be able to climb the tree and grab me? Not so much. So he's not a big threat. So I'm going to give him 4 Ds or 3 or 4 Ds. So anyway, so it's kind of a cool experiment that was done down, and it's borne itself out not just down the States by universities down there, but it's been repeated throughout North America. So they are certainly intelligent enough to rank their predators. All right, so next one here.
Chiquigas.
Hairy woodpecker. So we've got a number of different woodpeckers. There's probably at least 7 or so in the province of Brunswick, between the flickers and so on. We're gonna talk specifically about the hairy woodpecker here. This is a bird that's probably, if you went and measured it from the top of its head to the tip of the tail, probably about 22 centimeters in height. It's got a smaller cousin called the downy woodpecker, which it's actually a little bit more prevalent. You'll probably see a downy woodpecker in your backyards more often than you'll see a hairy woodpecker. Downies are a little bit smaller. They're about 15 centimeters in length, but they look almost exactly the same. You can see the male has got the red on the back of the head. Now let's listen to the sound file here, and you tell me whether it's a call or a sound or a song. All right. So the first part, what do you think that was? Call or song?
Call.
That's a call. Yeah, it's exactly. Yep. He's telling other people that there's a predator in the area, and that's the song. But I threw in something at the very end, and you heard some knock knocking. Did you hear that at the very end? So let's see if we can pick this up. Now that's not really a vocalization. That's not really a song or a call per se, but it is a way for them to communicate. And that tapping that you hear is what they use for, it's the equivalent of their song. They will use that to advertise for meat, and they'll also use that to advertise for their territory, to tell people that this is my spot, nobody else come in. I get all kinds of calls in the spring of the year when these guys are actively starting to establish families. I get all kinds of calls from people saying, Kelley, I've got an injured woodpecker here. He must be sick or something because he's banging on the siding of my house and there's no bugs in my siding. What's going on? You know, he's banging on this vinyl siding. Or, and I get calls on this too, about woodpeckers that are banging on stop signs at the end of my road. And it's not a sign of illness by any stretch. It's actually a sign of intelligence, because that metal sign and that vinyl siding on the side of your house, when you tap on that, the sound of that tapping goes a lot further because it reverberates. It echoes a lot better. And anything that would help to make that sound go out broader into the forest is a good thing, because that way they can establish and maintain a larger territory if that sound travels further. So that knocking that you hear, not really a vocalization, not really a song, but it does the same sort of thing as a song. It establishes a mate. It helps them to find a mate, and it also helps them to define the territory in which they live. Another cool thing about woodpeckers, and we'll talk a little bit about adaptation because I think you've been taking that probably in your sciences recently in the last few years. This is a cross section. The bottom image is a cross section of a woodpecker skull, and this is a pileated woodpecker. And I want you to take a look at the orbit, or the sort of the eyeball there, and you can see right underneath there. And I'll show you with my mouse. You see this thing that curls up? This is actually a pileated woodpecker's tongue. Okay. Now, our tongue starts at the back of our throat. You know, it would start, you know, about here kind of thing and go out to about there, and that's about it. But if your business, if your survival is related to being able to dig a hole into a tree to capture insects, sometimes they're insect eggs, as we saw in the image before. Sometimes you're trying to capture live insects themselves, centipedes, pill bugs, whatever, that are crawling up, and maybe even an emerald ash borer, climbing up within the tree itself. You've got to be able to grab them fairly quickly, and you have to be able to get in there fairly far into the heartwood of the tree, which tends to rot out first. So if you look at this, at the tongue of this thing, that's why their tongue is so long. If it had a short tongue, it wouldn't be able to stretch much further than its beak. But with the tongue that is as long as this one is, it can stretch out quite a ways, probably out to at least about here, and that way be able to get into further into the heart of the tree. Now, I'm hoping that your screen resolution is pretty good. Can everybody see the tip of the tongue right here? So if you see the tip of the tongue, you'll see some jagged little bits of flesh on there. Those are actually little barbs, okay? Little projections of skin that are facing inward. And between that and some very, very sticky saliva, and the long tongue, that's how these guys are able to grab insects and eggs from way far inside the tree. It's an adaptation that they've developed over hundreds of thousands of years to be able to glean eggs from there and find their ecological niche of gathering insects from inside a tree. So. Anyway, it's kind of a cool thing. Not going to spend any time on this. We talked about those song meters that we used in the experiments in northern Maine, northern New Brunswick, and southern New Brunswick. You can, believe it or not, get an app for your phone. I have one for mine. If you've got an Android, perhaps you can also get it for Apples as well. It's something called BirdNet. And basically you turn on the app, record the bird song that you're hearing, press a button, it sends it off to a database down in the US, and within 2 or 3 seconds, it will provide you with an answer, or usually provides you with an answer of what that bird is. Or it'll say, here are some probable guesses. I'll give you some guesses as to what might be there as well. So it's a cool little app to be able to have on a phone. It's getting better and better. Just like that Kaleidoscope software that I was talking about before. Every time that somebody submits something into this BirdNet database, artificial intelligence creates a better sound file for areas that the bird was located in. So it'll get better and better at recognizing regional dialects in Atlantic Canada. So pretty cool stuff. Yeah. For the kids from Elizabeth, if you were down in your soccer field, I bet you would probably, and especially in the spring of the year, not so much this time of year, but certainly in the spring when the males are actively singing for females and establishing their territory, you will probably hear this one fairly frequently. And I say that because I understand that your soccer field is right beside a forested wetland there. So it's a forest, probably softwood with red maple and so on, big spongy underneath, I'm sure, and when you're walking through. Excuse me. That's where these guys like to live. This is called the olive-sided flycatcher. And let's listen to them. Now, I will say that this is, we'll play the sound here. Okay, everybody get that? So I'm going to give you the mnemonic for it, and because this is a PG kind of learning environment today with middle school kids, the bird is actually saying, "Quick, 3 beers! Quick, 3 beers!" And of course, referring to root beer, right? Let's listen to it again. That's a pretty good mnemonic. It pretty well describes the olive-sided flycatcher's song for sure. All right. We're not going to do that one. I don't have time for that. Common yellowthroat. This is a beautiful bird. The male is quite distinctive. It does have that yellow throat, but that black mask on the face is the most easily recognizable feature on this one, I think, anyway. And this is a bird that is, I would say, unfortunately, this time of year they've flown down south. They're migratory birds, so they're down towards probably Central America right now. But in the spring of the year, the song of this is quite easy to remember, and it's actually fairly appropriate for this time of year. The song. I'll listen to it. I'm going to show you the mnemonic for it. Witchity, 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 witch. And that's how I remember this thing from when I was, well, even before grade 8. Witchity, 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 witch was the way it was described to me when I was younger, and I've never forgotten that. So that's the sound. Again, it's the sound that a male would make typically in the spring, early summer. And again, trying to attract a female. Witchity, 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 witch. Now, if you look at my notes, it says easily pished. What would I mean by pishing? Anybody have an idea about pishing? Anybody ever been out with a birder before and heard him or her do pishing? Yeah, it's something that you don't want to do it in the spring of the year because what it does, well, I'll tell you what it is in just a bit. Let's try to do it first, okay? But before I do that, how many people in the class, just by a show of hands, because I can see both classes here, just a single class and 2 views? I'm not sure. Michelin Maillet is, anyway. By show of hands, how many people have cats? There we go. We got some cat people there. Okay. Now, how do you call your cat? Besides using his or her name, how do you call it? What kind of sound would you use?
I had a cat.
There you go. Somebody's got it. Yeah. Right? That's how my wife calls the cats. She does that with a very high-pitched sound. And so, right? Now, that is actually, I'm just going to pull this down. That's actually a similar sound. You can actually use a similar sound to attract birds. And I think there's a reason for that. How you pish a bird, and you got to be careful on how you pronounce this too, because you don't want to get in trouble with your teachers, your parents. Ah, Bernie, there you go. Brought it right onto your lap, didn't I, Bernie? That's skill. I can pish a cat from 100 miles away. But pishing is a way to bring birds down closer to you to get a better view. Sometimes you can hear birds. You'll just get glimpses of them. And if you want to get a better view, there's a number of these smaller birds, and common yellowthroats are one. Another one would be a black-capped chickadee, kinglets, nuthatches. All of those smaller forested birds are very, very curious birds, and they come to that sound. And there's a reason why they come to that sound. The pishing sound, we're going to practice it here as a group here in a minute. That pishing sound is actually a bit of an alarm call. And it makes sense if you think about your cat, because some cats, well, cats are, their instincts are to eat things like birds. And if a cat hears a distress call from a bird, like that cat is thinking, ooh, there's an easy meal. There must be a bird that's got a broken wing, or somehow it's in distress. I'm going to come to it. Well, other birds, like I said, the yellowthroat, black-capped chickadee, and kinglets, and so on, nuthatches, they're very, very, very curious, and they're like ambulance chasers. They just have to see what's going on. So when they hear that pishing sound, they'll actually come towards it. Now, they're not going to land right on your shoulder, but they will come towards just to see what the commotion's all about. So we'll try pishing here. And this is the way, and again, you don't do this in the spring of the year or early summer, because what it does is it actually draws the birds off the nest. And if you draw a bird off a nest, it's easier for something like a squirrel to go in there and grab the eggs. So it's something that you do in perhaps mid to late summer, even through the fall and in the winter. Be perfectly fine to use this technique of pishing. All right. So we're going to give it a try. I'll do it first, and then you guys can try it. A little bit different from a cat call, but not much. Everybody want to try that? It works. I've been doing a Christmas bird count for 20 some years down in southern New Brunswick, and there's always a few birds that are sometimes a little bit hesitant or just a little bit too far away for me to identify. But using that pishing call, it brings them a lot closer, and that way I can get the binoculars on them and do identification. So anyway, so that's pishing. Careful how you pronounce it. Go on to the next one. This is an ovenbird. Ovenbirds are fairly common in the forests in New Brunswick. You can see where it gets its name, because if you look at the nest on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see they're ground nesters. They don't nest in trees, or they're right on the ground on the forest floor. In this case, it's in a tolerant hardwood stand. It's got some maple leaves and some oak leaves laying around. But it's got this oven-like, if you can think about those old brick ovens from, Village Acadien, or see some of those old brick ovens that the bakers used to use. You can see that the bird has formed that same sort of arch with grasses here to provide a little bit of camouflage for the eggs, as well as maybe a little bit of protection from the elements as well. So that's where the bird gets its name from. Now, ovenbird is a favorite of educators. Why do I say that? Well, let's listen to the sound of an ovenbird. You get that? One more time. Yeah, all right. Teacher, 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 teach. That's the song of the ovenbird there. Oops. Okay, try to get back here. That's the song of the ovenbird. I've got to move some things around on my screen here so I can see everybody. allow me. So Ovenbird, teacher, 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 teach. And again, something that you'll hear in the woods fairly. This bird, Hermit Thrush, and its cousin, the wood thrush, to my mind, are the most beautiful sounding birds in the woods of New Brunswick. And I'm going to play a thing here in just a second. I'm hoping you'll agree with me. I don't think you can not agree with me, really, when you hear it. They are a bird that you'll hear them. Obviously, they're most active during the dawn, but dusk as well. So when sun is rising and sun setting is when you're going to hear these guys the most. Let's play the song. Now, so would you agree that's a kind of a pretty song? Lots of notes there. That's one bird. If you're listening there, you probably heard a whole bunch of different notes happening at the same time. But that was one bird doing all of those notes. Now, I got it's anatomy time. It's time to go into your health classroom here. And we're going to test you on your anatomy. Yeah, go ahead.
You have 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Oh my goodness. Okay. Where is the larynx and what does it do for you? Anybody? Larynx is your voice box. It's your voice box. Yeah, right. It's how it's the way we speak. And it's located just down in your throat, just down below your tongue, on your throat. And there was an Italian naturalist way back 400 and some years ago who noticed that when people cut off the heads of ducks and geese for food, he noticed that the ducks and the geese could still make sounds. They could still do songs and still vocalize normally. And he said, well, that's different because, back in those days when they decapitated a person, well, there was no more songs being made, right? So he knew that there was an anatomical difference between the voice box of the ducks and the geese and of humans. And I'm just going to show you. There is the larynx. There's where it is in the body, the one on the left-hand side. But in a bird, the larynx is actually further down. I'm going to move the picture here. Is actually further down the trachea, further down actually at the spot where the bronchi break off into the two different lungs, into each lung. The voice box is located way down there. And it's on either side, so it can actually produce a song from each side, from each bronchi. So it can actually sing two songs at the same time, and often does. And that's why you hear the hermit thrush doing what it was doing back that last slide. And you see the image here. You can see the blue sort of sound waves coming up through from one lung. Well, that's represented in the sonogram, or this little electronic picture of the sounds. It's represented here. And then on the other side, the pink is up here. So this is one wood thrush singing, and two different songs at the same time. Let's listen to them. So that's the song of a wood thrush, and that's that's why. Hold on. That's now, and a lot of the songbirds in the woods of New Brunswick can can do similar songs to that. Some of them don't, but there are quite a number that can and do and produce those beautiful songs. I can't even sing with one song well, but these guys doing a great job. Okay, here's a little bit of a wildlife test, and it takes in, we're going to take in not quite vocalizations, but sounds as well as pictures. So got an image on one side of the screen, on the left-hand side of the screen. That is a set of bird tracks, one right in front of the other. I have my knife sitting on the ground. That knife is about, well, I'd say those bird tracks are about 4 centimeters long. Okay. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a big patch of snow where a bird is obviously taken off. You can see the wing beats there when he flushed. You can see where he's stirred the snow up there. I think everybody in the class will know this bird, but let's play this sound file anyway. Not quite a vocalization, but nonetheless, he's communicating. So listen, you have to listen very clearly. Show of hands, how many people recognize that one?
A motorcycle.
A motorcycle starting up? Yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah. Again. All right, I won't keep you in the suspense much longer. That's a ruffed grouse or a partridge. And it's not a vocalization. It's not a sound that's coming from his syrinx, his multiple voice boxes. It's actually from wings beating and creating a difference in air pressure between his wings and his body. So he's basically drumming on his chest, and that's actually what they'll do. The male will hop up on typically hop up on a hollow log and do that drumming on the log, and that way that voice or that sound projects out into the forest, much the same way as the woodpecker does by beating his head against a metal sign or the siding of your house, right? The whole intent is to get that to get the communication out as far as you can, and by hopping up onto a hollow log called a drumming log. They've got favorite logs that they found in the forest, these hollow logs. They'll hop up on that and drum on that, and it spreads the sound even further. Now, we'll talk a little bit about adaptation again, because this is a bird that will actually hang around the forest in New Brunswick all year long. And obviously, it's in the woods here in the wintertime. And this is, what I'm seeing here is, this is actually a female. This is a female as well. You can tell the males and the females by the break in the band on the tail. If these were both males, it would be a black band all the way across. But there's a break here, a break there. So these are both females. But in the wintertime, this is a bird that's partridge is what everybody normally calls it in the province. This is a bird that's about the size of a small chicken. And the way they can stay on top of the deep snow as they walk along, and they do a lot of walking. This is a type of bird that is very happy walking along on the forest floor. And by walking on the wintertime, they use a special adaptation. Get it up here. Here we are. There's a picture of the feet.
Dave, could you please come to the office? Dave, to the office, please.
And if you look at the feet, you can see this is in the summertime, of course, but these little things along the side are called combs. And in the wintertime, those combs actually enlarge, and they make for a larger, turn the sound off here. They make for a larger footprint. So basically it's a snowshoe. So that's how they're able to walk on the snow in the wintertime, light, fluffy snow. The combs engorge or enlarge, and it makes for a larger foot, and they're able to stay above the snow. Yeah. So that is ruffed grouse or a partridge. Now, in practical terms, and I'm just going to wrap this up. I think this is probably going to get out here soon. But in practical terms, birding by ear is important for our forestry operations, for people within our forestry operations, because sometimes when people are out there marking out a spot that they want to do a harvest in or do some work in, they'll hear the bird, but they can't see them because it's just so, there's too many leaves or too many branches. It's just hard to see. So what I've told the staff is when you're out there and you've heard the bird, just take a short video and, 10 or 15 seconds. I don't care about the quality of the video per se, but make sure that you've got your audio turned on and I can hear it. That way I'll know the sound of the bird. And if I can hear the sound of the bird, I'll know what you're dealing with in terms of the type of bird. And I'll be able to tell you where to look, what types of tree, how far up the tree you might find a nest, how big the nest is, and so on and so forth. So this was sent to me by one of our block layout foresters in St. George District, and this was sent by Sherry Hoggart, and she sent this in earlier this year in the summer. So that's the video clip she sent. Sounds like a barnyard, doesn't it? Sounds like a bunch of chickens clucking away. So she could hear it. She couldn't see it, but she knew roughly the direction. So she started walking towards the sound. And lo and behold, down on the forest floor, bits and pieces of food laying down there. In this case is I think that's a fall fish. Bernie, you know your fish better than I do. Is that a fall fish? I'm not sure.
Can't see it closely enough.
Close enough. All right.
Close enough to identify it.
It's a fish. It's not a goldfish. I can guarantee that. So she found that, and then she also found some bits and pieces of eggshells laying on the ground as well. And eventually, she was able to look up through all the different branches and so on and see the nest. And there it is on the right-hand side. Very difficult to see, isn't it? That's the nest right there at the very, very top of the tree. And that nest is one of about 4 different nests in this area. And it was from one of these things. This is a great blue heron. And for you people along the Northumberland Strait, you probably see them all kinds of times in some of the coastal waters and some of the salt marshes along the Northumberland Strait. It's a bird that stands probably about almost a meter tall. 2.5 meter wingspan, so it's a huge wingspan on it. It doesn't have much of a tail on the back end of it, so it doesn't have very good flying abilities. It's not a very good flyer. It's not very agile. So that's why they tend to build their nests on the top of the trees. It's a colonial nester. It will build its nest with a bunch of other birds, a bunch of other great blue herons. Sometimes 3 or 4 nests to a tree, and a colony can be up to 60. I've seen 80 nests in one area. So they're colonial nesters. They'll nest as a colony on the very tops of the trees, so they can get in and out of their nest easily without having to fly around branches and so on, because they're, as I said, they're not very good flyers. So Pam, I see you pop back up on the screen. That can mean only one thing. If you had a big hook, you'd probably reach out and grab me.
I don't know. Up.
So I think you've got classes are drawing to a close.
Yes, I think they are dismissing as we speak.
All right.
And they're welcome to do that and come back this afternoon. Thank you, Kelley, so much. That was great. The sounds were perfect today.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Michelin. Twin Michelin. Will we see you this afternoon?
Yes, I will be with another class this afternoon.
Perfect, Michelin. Enjoy your lunch.
I will. Thank you. Same to you.
Okay. And Kelley, thank you so much. Are you coming back for Ducks Unlimited?
I'm going to listen in for a bit on that, and then I've got a meeting this afternoon. But I'm going to start with it anyway. For sure.
Okay, well, great. That was super. All the presentations have been just super. I'm so excited. And I want you to enjoy your lunch, and we will resume at 1:55. I'm just going to leave the link open. So come in.
Yep.
And
Okay.
great.
All right. See you then.
Good.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Grace, for coming in. I hope you enjoyed that. Are you coming back for